What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. That doesn't matter because I am joined by an incredibly special guest, a four-time NFL Pro Bowler, 2003 NFC Offensive Player of the Year, a Packer Hall of Famer, direct from his own Batmobile right now. He is Ahman Green. You can follow him on Twitter, Ahman Green 30, part of the Believe Network. You can follow them at BLEAV Network. Ahman, thank you so incredibly much for joining me. I could not be more thrilled to be talking to you today.
Hey, thank you, Andy. Good talking to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a hot second, but always great picking your mind and going over Packers football and football in general. So we'll get to Saints Packers, which is obviously going to be the big preseason game. We just came off of practices as well between the two, but I got to open you up with a couple questions first, a couple fun ones. So this is a question that I always like to ask on Twitter from time to time because I always want to see where people are at. But you would know, and maybe you're a little bit biased here, but you would know better maybe than anyone.
Okay.
What's the better Packers offensive line? Chad Clifton, Mike Wall, and then obviously Mike Flanagan, Marco Rivera, and Mark Tauscher, or David Bakhtiari, Josh Sitton, TJ Lang, and then Corey Linsley and Brian Bulaga. So what is the better Packers offensive line?
Oh man, I got to go with my guys because I've been literally in the trenches with them. I knew what they were able to do. I knew why they did it, and we met a lot. We had a lot of meetings. That's when Edgar Bennett he started having running backs go into the same meeting room as the offensive line,
Nice.
and I think for all of us in that room, the guys you mentioned, that took our game to a whole nother level. I know it took my game to a whole nother level because then I started to get feedback on certain run plays, what the linemen were thinking compared to what I was already thinking. And then we're matching it up like, man, okay, I'm thinking this on a power. If I see the linebacker flow over top fast, I'm thinking of cutting it back. And so then they'd be like, okay, then if that happens, then we're going to, push to the linebacker and then make sure he doesn't get back to you, basically. So just having
Sure.
those conversations was I say eye opening, and it changed my game, and that's what took my game to a whole new level.
Man,
So
that
those,
2003 season was one of my favorite things because the Packers had obviously Dorsey Levens, Edgar Bennett, some fun running backs prior, during my time watching the team. But this was obviously from Favre and even going to Rodgers for the most part a passing offense. So all of a sudden to see a 2,000-yard rusher and somebody that just ran behind a dominant offensive line, it was a totally different ball. It was so fun to watch, and you were so explosive, obviously throughout your career, but especially that season. My other question is the most yards you had in a game, correct me if I'm wrong, 218 yards in a game, correct?
I believe so. Yes,
Yeah, okay. So
correct.
218 yards in a game. Every once in a while on the old twitter.com, the question will be asked, how many yards could the average human being get behind an NFL offensive line? So my first question behind that on that day, when you rushed for 218 yards, how many yards could today's Ahman Green get in that exact same game, under those same exact conditions?
Um, Probably the same amount, if not more.
All right. I love it.
Because the way, especially with the rule changes today, oh my God. So we give it you give me my five guys you already mentioned, and then me and our mindsets the way we play ball. Yeah, we'll probably put another 100 on top of that and make it 317.
All right. I
So
love it. Now, the next question, more importantly, is same conditions, same offensive line. Assuming that I cannot get injured, I will absolutely get hurt, but I can't get injured. How many yards could I get behind that same exact offensive line in the same conditions?
probably at least 100. At least
100?
100.
Okay.
I would give you 100 because those guys, like I said, they would not only the physical game. I remember hanging out with Marco sometimes in retirement now, and we would have conversations about our games. Like talking about the Bronco game or talking about the Philly game, or just Minnesota games. And he said to me one time that between plays, when we're having a good game, for example, Philly game, even though we lost it, it was a playoff, not the playoff game, but the regular season game that same season on Monday Night Football, and or any Bears game, for example, he would say to the guys on the other side of the ball, defense alignment, or for example, Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, he would basically say, we're coming pre-snap. He's telling the guys, oh, we're coming right here. Number 30, that guy right there, we're about to run the ball right off my left shoulder. And then the next play after that, we're going to go off my right shoulder. and then we're gonna run a power toss after that. Just letting y'all know what's about to go down. So he was playing psychological mind games with people.
That's
I'm sitting there like, I'm like, wait a minute, you were doing all that trash talk? He said, yeah, we were good. What was I going to do? I'm like, man, you making those guys mad at me then. It's like, you making my job a little bit harder. But
That's
to me,
amazing.
I'm like, they're just doing their job, you know, in terms of linebackers trying to tackle me and hit me. But a lot of it might have been because they were already, you know, made mad by my old lineman. I'm like, oh Lord, that's what was going on. Not only physical dominance, but then you playing mind games with them on the other side of the ball. I'm like, oh, okay, I love you. That's why I love you so much for that.
No, that offensive line was so incredibly fun. I'm with you. I think you picked the right, even though you may be a little biased, I think that's the right one. That offensive line from left to right was so dominant. And again, watching you guys run the football was so fun. Let's talk some current Packers, because I know we've got, again, big preseason game coming up. We've got an 85-man roster. Yeah, that's got to be whittled down to 53. But I would be remiss not to ask you about the current state of the running back position. Clearly, we've got Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon at the leader of the pack. But what have you maybe seen from this running back group as a whole? Have you seen anything from Tyler Goodson or any of the other running backs that's been intriguing to you? Or where are you kind of at with the current running back stable?
The current running back stable, I said it got a lot to show me. I watched the first preseason game, and it was tough sledding against the 49ers. But granted, even though that's 49ers back up, they still have good coaching. Even Robert Saleh has been gone for the last 2 years. But that still mindset of a run-stopping defense, it showed with the 49ers. So for Tyler Goodson, for the other running backs, it was good. It was tough sledding. I think it was Jackson had the big run on the left side against the 49ers.
Dexter Williams?
Yeah, Dexter Williams, excuse me. Dexter Williams. Yep, Dexter Williams had that big run. After him, you know, he's getting back in the Packer organization, back in the locker, in that room. So he kind of knows what he needs to do. He's a veteran now. And so for the young guys, they already know, okay, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, those are the guys. I'm going to be, probably more special teams, but I gotta crack myself into that lineup because I want to be a guy that this team, wants to depend on. That's the mindset that you got to have. That's the mindset I had. When I was a young guy, I'm like, look, let's try to, obviously, one, don't make a whole lot of mistakes. You're going to make mistakes because the other players are trying to win. But in the whole of things, let me win over those plays. Let me make sure the ball is secure, that whatever my assignment is on a play action play, I hit it right. If it's a blitz, I pick it up. If it's a ball I got to catch, I catch it and then get upfield, be the running back that I am. But then after that, special teams, if I got to make tackles, if I got to make sure I get down there and block for my teammate who's the punt returner and a kickoff returner, make sure I do my job. So look at the fine detail and maximize and execute on every play you have. And because you never know what play might be your last, because you can get injured, or you might get cut because it's training camp time. So you got to have that mindset. You can't think about getting cut. Just think about playing ball, doing your job, executing as close to perfection. You're not going to be perfect, but as long as you give an effort in that play, then coach will see, wait a minute, okay, this guy messed up, but look at his face. He's going fast. He's hitting the whole hard, or he's doing his job 100%. Even though it was wrong, I'm not going to down. Most coaches will not downgrade players on their effort. They're giving a good effort. They could be messing up. As long as they're showing effort, that means they're dedicated to what their craft is and trying to get better.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And Matt LaFleur echoed something in a press conference earlier this past week, saying that he understands mistakes are going to happen, but if you're doing them at 110%, it's a totally different ballgame at that point. So I really like the mindset of that. I want to ask you, and I know things were a little bit different. You didn't get taken out of the game too much when you were the running back, specifically in like the 2003 seasons and things like that. But obviously, you've got Aaron Jones, you've got A.J. Dillon. I felt almost at times that clearly having both is an amazing thing. But I almost felt like at times, just as Aaron Jones was ready to get in the groove of the game, then it was A.J. Dillon time. And just as A.J. Dillon was getting in the groove of the game, then it was Aaron Jones time. And it almost felt like the existence of both was almost detrimental at times to the production of either of them. And maybe that's just stupid. Maybe that's not a real thing. Maybe a run is a run and you just run as hard as you can on that play. But is there anything to getting in a rhythm and staying on the field and, going with a hot hand in that situation?
Now there is a thing about getting in rhythm as a runner. I felt that for myself. I would feel for one when I start a game, doesn't matter if it's preseason game where I only play one series or if it's a regular season game.
Get the first hit out of the way. Let's whatever that tackle is going to be. If they blow me up, if I blow them up and carry them for a few yards, get that contact started because then you're going to feel the pace of the game. Okay, this is going to be a hard hitting game, or this is going to be a game where if I'm the aggressor, we're going to win out. If our offensive line is going to push off the ball fast, I could come in the huddle and say, "Hey guys, we got this." After the first 2 or 3 plays. So with that mindset, you get ready, you kind of build yourself up, and then eventually you get in that groove. And we've seen it in other sports. Michael Jordan, baseball players too, getting in the zone where you're Derek Jeter when he was back in his time playing his game. You just get that focus, and then, like you said, it comes coming down when AJ is in a groove. He looked like he's about to get rolling, and then here comes Aaron Jones, right. And it's more of a coaching thing of rotating because a lot of coaches these days are thinking about kind of the running back by committee. Maybe he's a little tired, or I want to give a different look to the defense. But sometimes it's more of a coach. Like I said, it's more of a coaching thing. Got to learn. All right, this is not the time. Let me keep 28 in, or let me keep 33 in. There, he has the hot hand, and until that time comes where he has to now rest because he is human. Okay, right. That's when we'll take him out, but not right now. So it could be a craft that any coach could learn, not just Matt LaFleur, but overall, I think he does a great job with with both backs. To try to manage 2 backs of that caliber, it's a good problem to have, as a head coach. It's like, oh, okay, Aaron Jones he got to catch his breath, but okay, AJ, yeah, we're good because we got a whole nother package of offensive plays and formation for him. But yeah, it's just something I think as a coach. Because I coach sports, high school sports and high school football, esports and all that. You got to know when to pull that player out and when to keep him in. And you just got to take a wind of that. And I think it's just this thing like a new player got to learn the playbook. Some coaches, regardless of their experience, they got to learn that timing of when to pull that guy, in or out of that game.
No, I think that's totally fair. And like you said, it's a good problem to have. I think Matt LaFleur does a good job managing it, but was always curious if there is something to the rhythm there or not. All right, before we get into the actual preseason game, I did want to ask you about the current state of the Packers offensive line. I did feel like it wasn't quite the same clearly a season ago. Corey Linsley is gone. David Bakhtiari's out for the season. You lose Elton Jenkins halfway through. And I thought they got through it pretty darn well. Credit to Adam Stenovich and Luke Butkus and company. I think it hurt them in the playoff game against the 49ers, not having those guys. Now Billy Turner's gone, Rick Wagner's gone. They've got a variety of, different players that they've been moving in and out. They've got some rookies, but where are you at with the current state of the Packers offensive line, and just how important do you think Bakhtiari and Jenkins are to the long-term success of this team?
I say they're very important to the long-term success. And right now it's kind of, it's a question mark as a running back, and I've talked to with you came on our show with Mike Wall. We talked about this on Monday. It's a question mark to him to not know if, David's going to be back, for the regular season and where he's going to be because he's not playing right now. He just, right. I know the PUP list was what Tunyon came off of it, Christian Watson, and Elgin Jenkins.
Yep, correct.
It wasn't David. It's like, okay, this is the guy that we know he's proven best tackle in the league right now. But when is his timeline? So that's a worry only because we know what he can do when he's in there. There's no worry when David Bakhtiari is in there, along with Elgin Jenkins, who can rotate between guard and tackle, which that's a rare find to have. So that's the worry question mark because once the regular season get here, you don't want to use week 1 and week 2 as a testing ground. You want to use preseason. You want to use preseason training camp as the testing ground to see where he's going to be at, because we know experience-wise, David has it. The ability, obviously, we just kind of see how, if the knee is there, if it's back to 100%, that he could do his job. So with both, Elgin coming off a PUP right now, which is great, but now he's got to get into playing games, physical practices, things like that, to really know that he's ready to go for the regular season. So it's a little quite like Mike Wall put it on Monday. He said it's a question mark, little worry because you just haven't seen the guys in live action yet.
No, totally agreed. And I think the good news is that you go back and watch David Bakhtiari and even like the 30 snaps he played against the Lions in the game where he's not 100% and not himself. and he was still, really freaking good. Maybe not all pro David Bakhtiari, but he was still really freaking good, even with a bunch of rust and everything. So if he's good, you think that at least it's going to be an added value to him out there. I think the bad news is that, I think you still have those same question marks, right? Even if he's all of a sudden back and practicing and ready to go, like, can he get to back-to-back practices? Can he play in back-to-back games? Can he get through 30 snaps without having to come out of the game again, like happened in Detroit? So I think those are the questions that are going to have to be answered. And the fact that he's still on the PUP list, like you mentioned, with 3 guys that have already come off that had injuries after he had his injury, I think there just there's still that cloud hanging above 1265 of just the unknown right now, and that it's such a bummer because he's such a talented player.
Yeah, and then like with the young guys too, you got Sean Ryan out of UCLA, you got Brandon, was it Brandon Toms, if I'm saying that correctly? Zach Tom, out of Vanderbilt, who is, as we saw, he, as we're seeing in practice, a phenomenal talent that they were able to grab, in the draft. So there's potential there, but as a coach and as former players like myself and Mike, it's always good to know you got a solid, tackle, a solid guard. Not saying these guys are not solid. They just don't have the experience. Sean Ryan, he's coming out of UCLA. He's a rookie. Zach Tom, rookie. But that doesn't discount them. It's just saying we just know one thing is lacking is experience. Talent, physicality is there. We've seen it in practice. But we all know when you got a savvy vet or just a young player who has that experience in certain games, in certain situations, it gives the coaches a little sleight of mind to like, okay, I don't have to stress. I don't have to, push hard on a player. We know what he can do at that job. So just having those young guys is great to have them because it's youth, but then that experience is a little bit low. Other than that, that's about it.
It was the old machine where you said, like, set it and forget it, like that. If you have offensive linemen like David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins, you just set it and forget it. You can worry about maybe a couple of the other pieces, but those you can just put out there. And as a coach, I'm sure you don't have to worry about things quite as much when those guys are out there. So I think it's such a huge part of this season, exactly like you said. All right, Packers Saints, what are a few things that you are going to be watching for in this second preseason game for Green Bay?
So again, I'm gonna go to the offensive side, looking at the running backs. I'm hoping that I could see Aaron Jones and AJ. I just want to see where they're at.
Right.
Starting to get in their rhythm of the running the game, along with their timing, with their footwork, with the offensive line, because that's key. That's no different than the quarterback dropping back and throwing a slant route to the wide receivers. It's all about timing. And if that quarterback doesn't get that timing down, then you could tell it's off. So same with the running back. If he's running an inside zone play, if he's running an outside zone play, if he's running a toss play, a screen play, how does the timing look? And sometimes, as we know, there's practice speed, and then there's preseason game speed, and then there's regular season game speed. There's 3 levels. Yep. So you want to make sure, I want to see, okay, there's an inside zone. He's like, well, I'll watch the play, see the footwork there. Did he hit that hole just as his line was getting to their run fits, or was he too fast, or was he way too slow? Or on a screenplay, did he sell that he wasn't going out to get the screen set up, and then he bellies out to catch the ball and let his offensive lineman, get in front of him, so he has that lead of guys in front of him, so he doesn't have to take a hit. Did that time out right? So I'm looking at little things like that too. Same, like what Mike is going to look at when the ball is snapped. Who gets to their pass set? If it's a pass play, who is coming downhill heavy? If it's a run game, if it's a run play, things like that. And then defensively as well, I don't know if the starters are going to play anytime in the second one. So I would love to see that original D front. We got Gary, we got Clark, we got Jaron, we got Campbell. We all have Barnes in there, and then having Savage and Amos in the defensive backfield along with Alexander and Razul. Seeing the whole defensive front just to get them a series of like, okay, this is that defense, and then making plays and coming down and doing what they're supposed to do. Because right now, from the names on the paper, Preston Smith included, they're probably a top 10 defense in the NFL right now, maybe top 5. They have that talent. They haven't had that talent on that defense in a long while. So I'm even excited because I know when you have a solid defense and you got an offense that can get going with, you got Aaron Rodgers, it can get going, and you got AJ and Aaron Jones in that backfield. This team could be another problem. And you could look at another season going to the wins that they've had, double-digit wins, winning division. So it's excitement, for myself, but also, just getting into this game to see how they compete against a good NFC South team in the Saints.
Man, I've been at a lot of training camps over the last 30 years. I can't ever remember one where I couldn't look away from the defense because it was so exciting watching the defense play. Because there's obviously a lot of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers training camps along the way there. And usually that's where you want to keep your eyes, is on that side of the field. But when they're going offense on one side, defense on the other against the Saints, and I was down by the Packers defense, I couldn't even look at the offense on the other side because it was pressure after sack after. It was so fun to watch. And we'll see, a long ways away to seeing how that translates over to the field. And like you said, if all of a sudden some of those guys play in one of these preseason games, it'll be really fun to see just where they're at. But either way, really, really fun to watch them compete against the Saints in practice this week. A couple things I'm going to keep an eye on. We came off a playoff game against the 49ers where special teams was a huge piece of why they lost that game. And what happens on the very first play of preseason 2022? A holding penalty on a kick return. You had a kick that missed by about 50 yards. You had a punt that wasn't great. And you had some good things too. Amari Rodgers had the nice 50-some yard return, but some of those mistakes were still rearing their ugly head. And I want to see improvement in week 2. And while maybe starters aren't playing, throughout the course of the game, a lot of the guys that are going to be your core special teamers are still in that game and really fighting for some of those core special team spots. So that's definitely something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Clearly, Jordan Love and his progression. He had a phenomenal day of practice on Wednesday. I want to see if he can carry that over into the game on Friday and hopefully have one of his best performances of his career. And, as Mike McCarthy used to say, stack success. And then, I want to see, I'm sure we'll probably see a little bit of Quay Walker and what steps he can take. And then after Aaron Rodgers kind of called out some of these younger wide receivers, I want to see how they respond. And, there was the talk of running wrong routes, and there was the talk, obviously there was the drops and those sort of things. I want to see how the Romeo Dobbs and the Amari Rodgers and those type of guys, Samori Toure perform in this game and see if they can step up to the occasion.
Yeah, I definitely agree. With them, with Aaron, calling players out, I like that, and I'll tell you why. I like it because he actually, if you read the whole article, he just didn't go ranting on them.
Right.
They were in a meeting. It was calm, cool, and collective, and he basically said, "Hey, we're dependent on you. So you are pro now. So we expect you to know all the details of your route, of your play, where you line up, the alignment of the formation, what you're going to change if you notice that's in zone instead of press man or something like that. The details of it, and that's being a pro. And then the simplest thing as a pro, what you could do, being a wide receiver, just catch the ball, regardless of where the quarterback places it. As a good receiver, you make your quarterback look good when you adjust to the ball and then catches it. And we saw that, I know, with a young wide receiver out of Wisconsin, Danny Davis. He did a big adjustment for Jordan Love coming back. The ball was well inside. Actually, the DB, if the DB would have looked around and paid attention, he could have got himself an interception. But Davis saw it at first and caught the ball and was able to get to the end zone. You do more plays like that than players, then that lets the quarterback know, okay, this kid's trying to work, trying to get better. He helped me out on that play. So you know what? Let me help him out by placing that ball in better positioning when I'm throwing to him, if it's man coverage to zone coverage. So having that conversation, to me as a young player, I would say to myself, like, man, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to call this meeting. Okay, yeah, he dug into us, but we deserved it. Look at the game that we produced as young wide receivers. You know what? Thank you. And you know what? I'm gonna dig in that playbook. I'm gonna start writing notes. I'm gonna start asking a ton of questions. I'm gonna harass Matt LaFleur. I'm gonna harass. Okay, Aaron, you got in us. Now I'm gonna ask you all these questions because you want me there. You want me present, and so I will. And so get ready because I'm about to annoy the hell out of you because I want to be that guy. I want to be back up to Lazard and Watson if they're number 1 and 2. I'm gonna be that 3. Coming off the bench, and then eventually, get promoted up from that point. But I got to start somewhere, so I'm gonna start by harassing you. All right, what you need me to do on this? What type of ball you gonna throw? Pre-snap, where I'm asking all these questions. You're like, hey man, I want you to get annoyed to when you like, hey Green, just get out there. I'll throw it your way. I'm like, okay, good.
That's amazing. Let me ask you this: How long did it take you until you felt you were comfortable as an NFL player and felt like you had things basically figured out?
It took to my 4th year. So it was, I got traded here in my 3rd year to Green Bay in 2000. And of course, new team, I'm first year rookie, 2nd year in Seattle. and still finding my way through through my teammates there. And then boom, I'm traded. Now I got a whole new locker room of teammates that I got to get to know. I got to find out what their likes and dislikes are, and how they play ball, mentally and physically. Are they physical players? Are they a guy that really studies the game? All that. So I had to go through all that a second time. But the good thing was these guys here, Dorsey, William Henderson, Brett Favre, Donald Driver, Antonio Freeman, they had been to the mountaintop, so they knew what it took. And so when I kind of saw that in my first OTA practice, I was like, okay, I see what these guys are working with. They've been to 2 Super Bowls, they won one, lost one, so they understand it. So they're just letting me kind of like find my way and letting me just grow on my own and getting a little assist. Dorsey took me under his wing right away. Hanging out, at the local little restaurants here during mini camp. I'm from Nebraska via Seattle. I don't know nobody here. He invites me out to eat with some of the guys. Him and Dorsey, or him and Leroy and Gilbert were there, and a few other guys, and we're sitting there just having drinks, getting a hot dog. So it made me, for one, comfortable. Once I got comfortable with that in my first year, and then the next year, towards the end of my first year, Dorsey got hurt, but in my head, he was always the starter. Even though he was hurt, I was like telling the media, they're putting the microphone in my face. They're saying, hey, you're the starting guy now. I said, no, I'm not the starting guy. I'm in my head, nobody loses a job through injury. So until Dorsey comes back, I'm filling in time. I'm doing my best as possible that I'm not. And they're like, yeah, you're doing pretty good. But until that time, Dorsey's the starter. And then I say probably like 2 weeks after, I had to basically fend off the reporters putting that in, trying to put those words in my mouth.
Right.
Mike made this decision to put me as a starter. And then from the mid to late 2000 season to my 01 season, that's where that confidence kind of clicked in, because then I knew I had trust among my teammates, and then I had trust among my coaches that, then we're doing an offense where I had a package, 2 or 3 packages of run plays to pass plays for me. We're seeing this in the game film. I'm watching red zone. I'm paying attention to short yardage goal line. Like, all these are plays that are, for me. I'm like, okay, so that means I got to know these plays, every little detail, from what the guard is doing to what the tackle's doing to what the tight end's doing and what the quarterback is doing as well, to make this run or play pass work, because this is it all focus point is on me. So I was like, okay, I realized that. And so then confidence from that standpoint was like, it eventually went to another level, because I got the whole team behind me. And that's all you want as a player. You want your teammates, you want your coaches to have confidence in you that, you know what, Ahman, or ex-player, we trust you. We're going to make these plays. We're going to design this game plan to help you be you. And then we got other players around you, like Brett Favre. We can have plays for him that's going to maximize his talent just as yours. So that right there, between that season from the late 2001, that's when my confidence kind of came into flow. I was like, you know what, I'm in the right spot, and now I could be the pro that I want to be.
It's always one of the things that surprises me most about Packer fans at times still, because if any fan base should understand that it takes a player a few years to get integrated and be a professional and those sort of things, it should be Packer fans, because as you mentioned, it took you a couple years in Seattle and then, a little bit of time in Green Bay before things slowed down. Brett Favre had the terrible season in Atlanta and they traded him away and he had to, sort of get acclimated. Aaron Rodgers didn't play his first 3 seasons when he did. It didn't exactly look great in preseason. Guys like Donald Driver took time to develop, like TJ Lang took time to develop, Rashawn Gary right now, Devontae Adams, like these guys, if any fan base should know that, hey, like, let's wait until year 3, year 4 to see what these guys look like once they're slowed down and developed and things like that, it should be Packer fans. But unfortunately, I know everyone wants instant gratification and every rookie's got to be an all pro year 1. So, but maybe someday.
Yes, maybe someday. I mean, in certain positions, that's going to happen. I could see a defensive lineman coming in like a Claney Clark. He's pretty much been high level since his rookie year. And in certain positions, you could garner that. You could see that happening. But it's a phenomenon. It happens every 10, 20 years. We'll get that running back or that quarterback from day one walking on the team is that guy. Yep. That the team trusts, the player trusts, the players trust in that locker room. And then he's a leader. If he's not a leader by example, he's leading with his details of his what comes out his mouth. and how he practices and how he prepares.
Before we get you out of here, prediction on the season and anything you want to plug on the way out.
Oh yeah, me and Mike, we just did this not too long ago with the Believe Network. We put this out on the social media, so I'm gonna stick to my guns on this. My prediction on the season is that again, the Packers are gonna win the NFC North, and then this time, they're gonna get through the playoffs, get through the first round, and then get through the NFC Championship game and get to the Super Bowl and win. It's not gonna be the easy road. They're gonna have some losses. I see them. They were 13? Was it 13-4 last year?
13-4, yep.
Yep. I could see 13-5. I say 12-5 this year, but they get through each round of the playoffs, including the NFC Championship game, and then on to the Super Bowl and win that game there. So that's where I'm at on there. And what was the other part of the question?
Anything you'd like to plug on the way out? The Believe Network, your show with Mike, anything else?
Yeah. So yeah, 100%. So I'm doing another podcast like Andy's mentioned, on my block podcast, Green Bay Packer podcast with myself and my good teammate Mike Wall. And then I do my gaming podcast, Ahman Green's Gamers Lounge. It's live. I record it, but then I go live on Twitch, Ahman Green TV, and on YouTube, Ahman Green's Gamers Lounge. And also, Andy, I think you're gonna love this one. I got another podcast.
Love it.
We got 2 records in right now. It's myself, Dorsey Levens, and Gilbert Brown. All right. It's called Green and Gold G Lounge. It's should be live, if not today, or Friday, maybe next week. And we already have 2 recorded episodes. So we got great conversations between like I said, the guy that took me under his wing, and then Gilbert, a great teammate, great friend after football. We still talk, we still hang out. And this is the reason why we had those good teams in the early 2000s, even though we didn't make it deep through the playoffs. But you don't have a good team and not go far for no reasons. You have those good teams because you have players that have true character, true leadership, like Dorsey, like Gilbert, like Mike Wall, like Tauscher, like Flanagan, Rivera, Barry, Favre, Driver. Those guys. We did what we did because we were more than just teammates. We're friends and we're family.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really cool to see it when you guys get together and do those shows. You're going to put me out of business if you keep creating a new podcast every week, but it's still amazing. I love watching that stuff. Your show with Mike is phenomenal. It was so fun being on with you guys when we had the chance to talk, and every single week you guys are putting out awesome content. So you can check him out on Twitter at Ahman Green 30. You can follow him on the Believe Network. That's at BLEAV Network. Ahman, thank you so incredibly much for doing this. We'll have to catch up again soon sometime, but enjoy Packers Saints, enjoy the Packers season, and definitely stay in touch.
Hey, I will, Andy. Thanks for having me again.
You bet. And for those listening, thanks so much for joining. Always appreciate it. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Pack-A-Day Podcast. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.